In the quiet, usually serene college town of Moscow, Idaho, a chilling act of violence unfolded that would shatter a community and expose the dark double life of a man studying the very crimes he committed. This is the story of Bryan Kohberger, the criminology student who thought he could execute the perfect murder. The story begins with Bryan Kohberger, a 28-year-old criminology Ph.D. student at Washington State University, who, ironically, studied the very acts of crime he was about to commit. He had a reputation among some peers as being aloof, sometimes aggressive, and intensely focused on the subject of criminal behavior, even writing a paper that touched on how criminals might process a crime scene. His academic life and his private life seemed to diverge dramatically. He was an outsider, often described as isolated and struggling to form personal connections. This social alienation, some experts believe, provided the psychological fuel for what was to come. Throughout the fall semester of 2022, cell phone data later revealed a disturbing pattern. Kohberger repeatedly drove his white Hyundai Elantra from Pullman, Washington to Moscow, Idaho, specifically surveilling the off-campus house where 4 vibrant University of Idaho students, Madison Mogan, Kaylee Goncalves, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, lived. The precise motive remains unknown, forever sealed by his refusal to speak, but theories range from intense sexual and social rejection, leading to feelings of rage, to a twisted desire to exert ultimate power and control over the lives of others, or perhaps even an attempt to execute a crime he believed his criminology knowledge could make perfect. His repeated presence near the house established the crime as calculated and targeted, not a random act of violence. In the early morning hours of November 13, 2022, the crime occurred. Kohberger is believed to have driven to the house, parked out of view, and entered. He was armed with a long, military-style car knife. The attack itself was shockingly swift and brutal, with investigators estimating the entire in-house sequence may have lasted only 2 to 4 minutes. The victims were attacked in their beds, with defensive wounds suggesting some had woken up during the assault. In a chilling detail, one of the 2 surviving roommates was awakened by noise, and upon opening her door, she saw a masked man with an athletic build walk past her toward the back of the house and exit through a sliding glass door. This witness provided the only in-person description of the attacker. As he fled the scene, Kohberger made the fatal error that would ultimately lead to his capture. He left the knife sheath on a bed near the bodies of 2 victims. This item contained a trace amount of his DNA. The ensuing weeks saw a massive but seemingly stalled investigation that captivated and frightened the nation. The breakthrough came when investigators focused on the white Hyundai Elantra seen on surveillance footage fleeing the area. Combining this with the DNA found on the sheath, they utilized genetic genealogy, a technique that links crime scene DNA to familial matches in public databases to narrow their focus to the Kohberger family. This lead was solidified when police, tracking him as he drove across the country for the holidays, collected trash from his parents' home in Pennsylvania. The DNA from the trash confirmed a familial match, and an eventual direct DNA sample provided a statistical certainty. 6 weeks after the murders on December 30th, 2022, Kohberger was arrested in a raid at his parents' house. After being extradited back to Idaho, facing overwhelming evidence including the DNA and the cell phone data, placing him repeatedly at the scene, Kohberger eventually entered a guilty plea to all 4 counts of first-degree murder and the felony burglary charge on July 2nd, 2025. This plea was a desperate, strategic move to avoid the death penalty, which prosecutors had been preparing to seek, thus preventing a public, drawn-out trial that would have dissected every painful detail of the crime. On July 23, 2025, the 30-year-old criminology student was formally sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 10 years for the burglary. He remained stone-faced and silent during the sentencing hearing, offering no explanation or remorse, sealing the case as one of the most brutal and baffling murders in recent U.S. history. A tragedy where justice was served, but closure remains incomplete due to the perpetrator's silence.